Welcome to the LowCarbUSA podcast, where we seek to inspire you to help us build this community. I'm Doug Reynolds.
And this is Pam Devine.
Since the Restore Health was at our event in San Diego, they've wanted to include a low-carb element to their health coaching program. And so for the last 6 months, we've been working really hard to get this program in place, and it's all coming together now. When I started LowCarbUSA back in 2016, I wrote I created a Keto 101 like coaching program to try and help people who wanted to adopt this lifestyle. But being the engineer that I am, it kind of worked, but it didn't look very good. And so even though it was on my website, I never really promoted it at all. And what's happened now is that since Restore has come on board, they've taken all that content and turned it into a really impressive set of lessons and a whole program. And we have Kristen here from Restore, and she has been instrumental in actually making those lessons and creating this content for us. So Kristen, tell us a little bit about Restore, about why this program is so effective, and then a bit about the whole low carb nutrition side of and all these new lessons that you've created.
Yeah, thank you, Doug. So I'm Kristen. I work for Restore Health. I'm one of the health coaches, and I also am part of our leadership team with our health coaches. And what we do at Restore Health, we have a digital platform where we pair educational content like lessons or articles with personalized one-on-one health coaching. And so what we've done here with Low Carb is we've created this entirely new program that uses, content that's focused on low carb nutrition, that's focused on the Smart X training, that's basically teaching people, not just the information, not just educating them on, why these things are beneficial for them, but teaching them how to actually do it, how to actually implement it into their lives. And that's where the coaching is so key. That's kind of our magic ingredient, because our coaches work with these folks one-on-one to kind of help them build habits layer by layer, kind of one step at a time. A lot of times when folks try to start a new habit or, think about it like a New Year's resolution, I'm going to be healthy, right? Like, what does that mean? They go big and they go really non-specific. And we go small. So we start kind of one step at a time. We focus on nailing one behavior at a time, and then we just kind of layer it on from there. So yeah, that's kind of the gist of what we do and what we've got in this new program.
Cool. And so now I think one of the things that sets us apart from most of the other low carb diet or nutrition programs is that it incorporates an exercise component as well. And so we've become very aware of the fact that although we've been told all along that it's just about the diet and it's not about exercise in terms of weight loss, that if it's done correctly, it can be extremely beneficial and act in conjunction with the diet to be most effective. And so, and we've learned that all from Dr. Ben Bocchicchio. And so we've included him in a lot of our events now. He's a speaker at most of them. He has a room that he sets up where he demos his exercise protocols and stuff. And what I'm really excited is that we've incorporated this exercise philosophy into your program as well. So maybe Dr. Ben, just quickly explain to everybody what it is that sets your program apart from the others.
Okay, well, anytime we're incorporating behaviors or treatments, or we're basically trying to instigate pathways and chemical pathways, we call them metabolic pathways, And so you can do it in a number of ways. Well, a keto diet or low-carb diets tries to control insulin production by eating fewer carbohydrates and therefore eliciting a smaller amount of necessary insulin support, because the more we're exposed to insulin, the more we become inured or we become resistant. And insulin resistance is the root of basically every metabolic disorder, cardiovascular, Alzheimer's, some forms of cancer, obesity. So the pathways that help mitigate that insulin problem are what we're trying to induce through eating. Now, you can induce the same pathways through different mechanisms, and in some cases, very similar mechanisms, by a specific activation of muscle, which is known as exercise. And it's exercise because it's formal, it's structured, and it elicits the same, similar, and synergistically the pathways that we're trying to induce to reduce stored body fat, to reduce the necessity of insulin, to increase the sensitivity to insulin, and to store fuel, including glycogen, which is sugar, in a healthy way, so we don't tax the liver, which now becomes a big problem because of too much sugar, and then the liver having to produce fat from it. It has no other choice because it can't store that much. And so all of those objectives that we're trying to accomplish, or so many that we're trying to accomplish in a low-carb lifestyle, can be enhanced and accelerated and exaggerated by the right kind of muscle stimulation or exercise. And basically the power of the muscle system is what I use to manipulate metabolic change.
Okay, so the crux of your whole program is that you literally work out for around 15 minutes and only twice a week.
Right.
Right. So just this morning, I was talking with Chris Cornell, who's the other guy here on this podcast. I work a lot with him on marketing and stuff on our side. And he was saying to me just this morning, like, how many times a week do you work out? And I said, twice. and he kind of said, like, no way. So I thought, since we were planning to have this discussion today, I thought, okay, let's get him on here so that he can ask you that. How is it that works like that? And maybe come at you with some questions that the typical people in the public would maybe come at. So Chris, welcome, and off you go.
Well, very nice to meet you, Ben and Kristen. I did have some questions. I just actually saw Doug in the movie Fat Fiction last night, and it showed off his physique as he was running. So I actually asked him if he was doing your workout when he was talking to me about the Restore program, and he said yes. And I said, how many times are you working out a week? And he said, twice. And I said, for 15 minutes? You know, you've got to be kidding me. And I'm 55 years old. I've been working out on and off throughout my lifetime, doing free weights and body weight exercises. But like a lot of people, I tend to work out for a lot longer than that. And sometimes it's inconvenient to spend an hour and a half. And I'm starting to realize maybe it's not necessary. Certainly, I'm intrigued by your program, but I wonder, like, what kind of compromise I'd be making if I were to go from my 4 times a week, 1 hour workouts down to your program.
Okay, so when you use the verb compromise, I think it's actually what kind of enhancements can I get? What are the exaggerated, accelerated benefits I can get by not doing the 4 times a week? And if we understand what your objectives are, almost everybody's objectives are to increase muscle, lean muscle, either mass or strength or tone, however you want to describe it. It's the same really mechanism, and reduce body fat. If that's your goal, and improve metabolic health, if that's your goal, then 4 times a week for an hour or so will not get you there. You're spinning your wheels a lot, and by spinning your wheels, you're promoting excessive friction you have to overcome in order to progress upwardly, okay? Because let's take a kind of a genetic, species genetic developmental kind of approach. How did we develop this muscle system? Was it that we every day hunted vigorously and exhaustively and had to do it on a daily basis? No, we hunted hard, We pulled large beasts around. We did this very hard work. And then we sat and we ate for a couple of days, because if we had to do this every day, we would have not survived as a species because we would have been exhausted. Okay? So if you follow that protocol, the same thing with eating. I mean, if we ate, first of all, we didn't have carbohydrates. We couldn't have eaten them. Okay, well, they weren't available certainly year round. So since we can store, 2 months worth of fat and 1 day's worth of sugar, what do you think was the food source or the fuel source that kept the species going? Certainly it wasn't the 1 day supply of the sugar, it was the fat. So I mean, there's a kind of a logical reverse engineering of how we get into this stuff a little bit. So this exercise, if we incorporate it at the level that we're supposed to, if it's going to be productive, if it's going to get us to a threshold, meaning a point at which our body is going to respond upwardly and efficiently and safely, it has to be done on an intermittent basis. It can't be done on a continual daily basis if you really reach high intensity. Now, can it physically be done? Yes, it can. Okay. Will it give you the highest return? Absolutely not. We start to get into stress hormones, which enhance abdominal fat storage, which we don't want, which inhibits testosterone utilization for building muscle, growth hormone, things like that. So if we understand the mechanisms of what we're actually trying to accomplish by this muscle work, by this exercise, then we can see pretty readily that twice a week works out almost ideally, because protein synthesis will start to diminish after 96 hours, that's 4 days, and usually 60 to 72 hours until the cycles that we instigate enzymatically, the signaling proteins, the building proteins, structural proteins, all those things take about 48 to 60 hours. Okay, so, and a 72-hour time frame will not encourage a loss of that protein synthesis or muscle gain. So that's just pure physiology. That's textbook stuff. That's not Dr. Ben's story. So when we apply this exercise protocol, which is high intensity, subjectively high intensity for every person at a higher level than they're used to, the healthy body will upwardly adapt and compensate for that. But that compensation probably takes 2.5 to 3 days, which means that you can't work out the next day. And I don't like working half my body one day, half the next, because we not only have these local effects at the site of the working muscle, we have global support effects. And if you split your body in half, you're demanding of that global support, your respiratory system, your cardiovascular system, your hormone system. You're demanding it on a daily basis, and it is inefficient, and it is less than progressively productive. So it's just based on that. And by the way, just as an aside, for 50 years of clinical observation, it works with most of the people most of the time. And people who try to do it 3 times a week, almost everybody comes off that within a few weeks. And some people do it once a week and can maintain reasonably, but twice a week seems to be the sweet spot, the happy, lucky, maybe sweet spot for just about everybody across the board.
Oh, that's awesome. I was also curious about, number one, what I would experience. I know that obviously the intensity is going to be much higher for those 15 minutes than I'm probably used to. What kind of transition would I expect going from my traditional workout that I've been doing on and off for 40 years or 30 years to your workout?
So when you say what kind of transition can you expect? I'm not clear on that. What that?
How much more intensity am I going to be required to put forth?
Okay, Chris, here's the deal. If you reach muscle failure on a given exercise with a certain set of muscles or an isolated muscle group, you go to failure. Okay, mechanical failure meaning that you can't do another full rep in good form. Okay, relatively, it's the same for you as it is for anybody else. And so it's as hard, you can't work harder than failure, okay? And I'm not trying to say this is an ominous, mountains of buildings going to fall down on you or something, but it's harder than you're used to. It's more concentrated than you're used to. It's briefer than you're used to because it has to be. If I ask you to sprint, you can't go a mile. Okay, so this is a controlled sprint. Think of it as wind sprints for different muscle groups in your body, except that the movements are slow and concentrated and steady loaded, a constant load on a muscle until it reaches failure. Now, how else do we define that? The time under load, the set will take you probably somewhere between 30 and 90 seconds to reach that failure point. there's some outliers in different exercises, and very few people are outliers. It's mostly the mechanical issue. And so what happens is you'll fail, and if you don't fail within 30 to 90 seconds, either the weight's too light, meaning you're going 2 minutes, 2.5 minutes, which means I could have upped the intensity. And if you're not going 30 seconds, the mechanical load or the resistance is probably a little bit too high. And there are reasons why we don't have to incur that much tension, that much load to safely arrive at a threshold of positive metabolic responses.
Is there like training videos that come along with this Restore program for the exercises?
Yeah, Kristen, you can address that, but yeah, and they're also on YouTube and on LowCarbUSA. There are specific full-length in real-time workouts to show you.
Awesome.
Kristen, you want to add anything onto that about how we present that in the Restore program?
Yeah, so we kind of teach members about this type of training in a few different ways. So we have some lessons that are intended to be educational to sort of explain everything that Dr. Ben just explained, and then to also kind of explain the difference between exercise and activity, which is one of my, so I think probably favorite things I've learned from Dr. Ben, is sort of that idea that exercise is this intentional, planned, structured thing, and what we often call exercise isn't actually exercise, it's activity. So we've got lessons on that, and then we do have workouts at a variety of sort of like times and levels to accommodate like the reality of people's comfort level or their experience or their needs, while the 15-minute, start to finish workout is absolutely appropriate for everyone. Some people might not have 15 minutes even. Or they might feel more comfortable starting with a shorter workout. So we have 30-second options that just teach them one of the movements, or we have 4-minute options that just do 2 of them. They're kind of smart mini workouts. So we've got all of that content in the app for them to, kind of try that out and begin incorporating those workouts as well.
So Chris, I have a question. Since we're talking about this, say, let's just, for example, give me a quick example. How do you work your biceps? Okay, let's just, what's your routine for that?
I do sets of pull-ups, both chin-ups and pull-ups. I do 5 sets apiece with relatively short rest, and then I do some curls and some cable pulls.
Okay, so you do 4 exercises for your biceps, basically. Okay.
Yeah, give or take 4 or 5.
Okay, and you do multiple sets of each.
Correct.
Okay, now, what makes you stop the set? You've reached a certain number of repetitions, a certain sense of fatigue. How do you stop? What's the end point?
For pull-ups, I literally do as many as I can in each set, and for the curls, I pretty much go. I probably am not fully consistent, and I know that doing that many sets, I have trouble really doing failure each time. So
sure. Yeah, so here's the deal. In this protocol, the protocol that I do and Doug does, okay, and I've been doing for 50 years, I do 1 set a week of bicep curls.
Wow.
So I do about 3 to 4 reps per week, twice per week. And the same thing for triceps. So for my biceps, okay, but here's my little wise guy explanation. 3 sets of 10. The last 3 reps of the 3rd set are the ones that really count and really get you to failure. Okay, that's the general consensus concept. So my question is, what's the purpose of the first 27 reps if the last 3 are the ones that produce the result? Okay, so in my simple philosophy, I want to do the last 3 reps, the ones that count, first. When I am stronger, when I am fresher, when I am more capable of taxing the muscle because I haven't pre-fatigued the hell out of it, okay, to stimulate a gain. So we get the end. So after you've stimulated these muscles to failure and a set of chins or a set of curls, what do you expect would be, the advantage? The advantage really is none, okay, because now what's happening, you're giving your body more work from which to recover. And that once you stimulate that threshold with that failure in that 1 set, you can do no more to stimulate more. Once you reach threshold, you can't reach more than threshold. You know, it's the rock at the top of the cliff analogy I give. Once you push that rock and it starts falling, that's threshold. You try to push it more, you're going to fall under the rock on the other side, okay? Get out of dodge, stimulate to that metabolic, see, the mechanical failure in that first set of good form, controlled repetitions equates exactly to the metabolic threshold that's required to stimulate all these growth signals. And that's really what you're trying to do, stimulate those signals and then let them come to fruition, okay? Not to do them more, so in case, you know, they haven't listened the first time, because all you're doing now is at least non-productive and probably counterproductive. It's making now we get into stress hormones, which inhibit muscle growth, which inhibit testosterone response, which inhibits fat release from the viscera. Okay, I mean, so there's a lot of reasons why doing that much. Okay, if you're thinking about a bodybuilding kind of a thing, and I tell people, if you think you're a bodybuilder, unless you really are, you're delusional. Okay, number one, you're probably genetically delusional, and number two, if you think that these guys are super physiologically, one, gifted, and two, enhancing their physiology, then you're silly, okay? So that's why and I think, and I've even taken world-class Mr. Olympia contestants at the top of the world, bodybuilders, and cut their workouts by 80%, and they've done just as well, if not better. So, okay, but that sometimes you get confused. You look at big muscular people and say, ooh, you know, it's like me looking at a 7-foot basketball player and say, ooh, let's go dunk. You know, it ain't gonna happen. So, okay, I understand the difference in genetics, but the pure physiology of this and what works so nicely in this, Chris, is that not only do we enhance this muscular response and production and function, but simultaneously we're enhancing the metabolic components and pathways and chemistry that instigate reducing body fat, increasing insulin sensitivity, and increasing strength, which is the #1 correlative to mortality. Muscle strength is the highest singular correlate to living longer.
Yeah, so just to chip in there, Chris, I mean, I'm also 55 years old, and I've been doing this for about 2 years now,
Yep.
Dr. Ben. But I honestly can say, and I mean, I started trying to do some kind of gym workout thing because I felt my strength waning fast, you know, the downhill side of getting old. And I was trying to do something to slow that down. But I can honestly say now that I'm stronger now than I have ever been in my life. And that's pretty impressive, because when I was in my early 20s and stuff at university, I was working out what I considered to be really hard in the gym there as well. And, you know, at that time, I always used to look back and think that's the strongest I ever was. But I'm stronger now than I was back then. So, Chris, any questions for Kristen? As far as the nutrition side of things go.
Well, first of all, it occurred to me what great timing you guys have for launching this program with everybody cooped up in their house and faced with this horrible COVID situation. What a perfect opportunity for people to take advantage of a program that seems like could be done entirely from inside of their own house. I was curious about both the stress and the sleep improvements that one might see on the Restore program.
Yeah, that's a great question. And those are we call them our 4 pillars. So we focus on nutrition, exercise, but sleep and stress. And we believe that in order to be, you know, a healthy person, to be completely healthy, that all 4 of those things have to be functioning well. You have to be getting enough sleep, you have to be managing your stress, you have to be moving your body, exercising, and you have to be eating well. So we've got a bunch of lessons as well that talk about sort of recognizing the signs of chronic stress, the physical signs, the emotional signs, the mental signs, and then that talk about how to cope with it, real actionable, like helpful tips and strategies on coping with stress and managing stress. So one common thing that a lot of people do, and we talked about in Boca a lot, is they reach for food. We feel stressed out, and so food is our security blanket. It's our comfort. It's how we self-soothe. So we feel stressed, we reach for food. And right now, being trapped at home, the kitchen's right there. Like that's probably happening even more than often, or even more than normal. So we talk about replacing that pattern of reaching for food when we feel stressed out with a different habit, and not something like, oh, you feel stressed out, you reach for a cookie. Let's reach for, I don't know, a vegetable instead. Let's not reach for like celery. That's completely unappealing, and that's not answering the problem. You're just replacing unhealthy food with something that is, perceived to be healthier. It's not going to fix the actual issue, which is that you're stressed out and you're looking for something to soothe yourself. So we talk about doing other things like social connection, calling a friend or a loved one, or doing something that's going to be mentally stimulating, like reading or a puzzle, or moving your body, getting some activity, going for a walk or going for a bike ride, or doing something that you enjoy. So finding things, taking the moment time to actually think about like, what makes me feel better when I'm stressed out, other than reaching for food, and what makes me feel better when I'm stressed out in the long term. Because food just provides that like temporary relief. It feels good for 5 seconds, and then you feel guilty and you feel worse afterwards. So that's the stress side. And then with sleep, we kind of do a similar thing. We work on, learning about good sleep hygiene and good sleep habits, building a healthy sleep routine so that we can get, ideally 7 hours or more of solid, like quality sleep every night.
And how long would you say that somebody that first got into the Restore program would have to wait before they started seeing positive results? And, what could they expect?
Yeah, I love this question, because the implication, the first thing that people think about when they hear the word results is weight loss. Like that's just the natural thing that people immediately think of. And that's not to say that weight loss is not a side effect of improving your nutrition habits or your exercise. It certainly is, but there are so many other positive results that members experience, like more energy, mental clarity, feeling more productive, all of the stuff that you see as a benefit from switching to a keto or a low carb diet. I mean, it's the same thing here. And that happens quickly. Within the first month, you start seeing those results and feeling those changes. And especially, I mean, it depends on your starting point. If you're not sleeping well and you're super stressed out and your diet's a mess, then yeah, even the littlest changes are going to have a huge impact right away. And like day one, you feel confident, you feel good about yourself because you've decided to make this positive change. The other stuff, I mean, I think that most members at about 4 months have seen a significant weight loss, and also improvement in a lot of their other numbers. So their blood pressure improves, their blood sugar improves, their A1C improves. All of those things start to improve as well as they make these changes.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's one of the, and we've discussed this before, Kristen, but it's like one of our biggest things is that we try not to focus on, as much as everybody normally is focused on weight, it's actually metabolic health.
Yeah.
And if we can improve your metabolic health and basically find a way for you to improve, or in most cases, even reverse all those metabolic conditions that people are suffering from, that your weight will normalize over time anyway, as a bonus, as a side effect.
Mm-hmm.
But there are people where weight is a big issue for them, and that's all they focused on. But we try not to have everybody focus on weight, and really focus on trying to get healthy, and that your weight will normalize as a consequence of that. And it's really, and for me, I feel like down the road, we will have really succeeded when everybody is doing this, or adopting this lifestyle in order to stay healthy, as opposed to fixing it once they're already sick.
Mm-hmm.
Because right now, most of the people that come to our events, most of the people that follow us and everything, are people that are sick, and they're desperate to find a way to to fix that. And my point is, well, why don't we all try and get everybody to eat right from the beginning so they don't get sick in the first place? So that for me
Yeah.
is first prize, but it's going to be a while before we get there.
Well, I mean, this whole deal that's going on now, I think in the long run is going to make people more acutely aware of their health. I mean, because now they understand. When you look at New Orleans, okay, this is just my interpretation. New Orleans is going to have a higher death rate than almost any place in the United States. You know why? Because it's the fattest state in the union. Okay, and I think people with pre-existing, what are pre-existing conditions? They're metabolic diseases. Okay, high blood pressure. Okay, obesity, diabetes. These people die sooner. Why? Because they're not as healthy. Okay, so health, like Doug says, health is not only a reversal from illness. Health is a status that defends your immune system and enhances your life. I mean, and elongates it. I mean, so that health, the attainment of health, it should be much more crystallized as being the goal that we're really looking for. And with that comes all of the benefits. Because when you see somebody who's lean, you see somebody who's vibrant, say they're healthy, right? I go into a doctor's office. I'm 71 years old. I got my shirt off. I'm sitting on the thing, and the guy comes in. The guy studied years and practiced for years. He goes, "Wow, there's nothing wrong with you." I mean, what the hell? Yes, he doesn't even know my friggin' name. There's nothing wrong with you. So there is this kind of connection, of health and leanness and whatever, because it's basically true. I mean, you cannot be healthy and be, sluggish and fat and, non-functional. And, these things take a toll. And if you can, like Doug says, so important, if we can keep people healthy or get the people that are maybe starting to go off the beaten path a little bit and get them right back into this, and it does happen quick, Chris. I mean, these workouts, and you combine this with keto, well, my workouts, honestly, there are people who come back after 2 or 3 50-minute workouts, and you can see a difference. It sounds like crazy mystical stuff, but honest, Doug Reynolds, I mean, people that saw him after 4 or 5 workouts all asked him, "Are you taking steroids? What are you doing?" Right, Dougie? I mean,
that is
what's
correct,
4 or 5 workouts? No, this is the real deal. This is potent medicine, and so we gotta distribute it responsibly and safely. But this is real stuff.
Yeah. And I think if I can add, like your goal, Doug, of that, we're maintaining health. The more people, like, that's what the pursuit of health, as opposed to the pursuit of strictly weight loss, that's like the power that it has. Because for every person, and we've seen it with members over and over again, every person that changes their health, they change their value system. It has an impact on their family, on their friends, on their social circle, and they become, sort of this little champion of health out there doing the same for other individuals that they come into contact to. So it spreads in that way. You don't see that with weight loss. So
to finish up then, Kristen, anything you'd like to add to finish off here?
I guess maybe a helpful tool would be talking a little bit about how folks can sign up for this. When you choose to enroll, you can choose to go month by month and kind of see how you go, see how your progress goes, or you can choose to enroll for 6 months at a discounted rate. And typically, our standard program is, longer. So I think the 6-month option is optimal. Changing habits takes time, and changing your health takes time. But yeah, I think that's probably the only other thing I'd add.
Yeah. Okay. So because we'll definitely put the link in the show notes here, but it's going to be all over. I mean, there's going to be all over social media. It's on our website. There's all sorts of ways that people can get to it. But it's restorehealth.com/lowcarb. Okay, Ben.
Yeah.
Any final comments from you?
No, I think, like Chris said, this boy, we stepped in good stuff, because this remote coaching is really becoming big, and more people, I think, will rely on it. And this is a top-notch. I mean, not because we developed it, or not only because of that, but I think this is a real program that'll work for a lot of people. Very convenient. and as far as being economical, I mean, instead of getting a health coach at how many thousands of dollars, I mean, you're having a health coach and resources and programs and step-by-step concepts. I think this is the wave of the future, and we're just ahead of the curve with this Restore program.
Yeah, and I think something that hasn't been mentioned yet is we had the Restore guys at a table at our event in Boca in January. We were actually hoping to be ready by then, but it wasn't. So they were just telling people what was coming soon, and took a list of names of people who wanted to hear back from them once we were ready, once we were at this point, once we were ready to launch. And I think what was interesting was that most of the people who put their names down there were all the doctors that were there. Mm-hmm. Because I think that they're seeing that they've been at the event, they see, oh, wow, yeah, okay, I need to teach my patients about this low carb thing, or convince them that they need to do this in order to improve their health. But now I've only got 15 minutes with them. How do I teach them to do keto or low carb, or teach them how to do all these exercises in 15 minutes? They can't. And they need some resource that they can point them people to in order to have them learn how to do this. And this now is a properly certified program that that they can point it to. So I think for all the doctors who are getting through to their patients, but then unable to get them to stay on this because there's no way to coach them, now they have that capability, and I think that's pretty exciting as well. Yeah. Okay, guys, thank you very much for joining us and being a part of this. I'm really excited that this is happening, and see great things in the future. Thank you. You've been listening to an episode of the LowCarbUSA podcast. You can support us on Patreon at patreon.com/LowCarbUSA.